His car split in half on live TV. People watching thought he was dead. But somehow, Stan Fox survived. This wasn't just any crash. It happened at the biggest race in America, the Indy 500. 1 second, he was racing. The next, his car exploded into pieces. So, what went wrong that day? And how did Stan Fox live through something so violent? This is the shocking, true story of a crash no one could believe. Stan Fox was born on July 7, 1952 in Janesville, Wisconsin. From the start, his world was surrounded by engines and speed. His parents owned a company called the Land Corporation. It made motorcycle parts under the brand Parts Unlimited. So, growing up, Stan was always around machines, tools, and racing talk. It was a natural part of his life. He was curious about how things worked. That love for mechanics and motion started when he was just a kid. But even though he loved cars, he didn't jump into racing right away. Before he became a full-time racer, Stan took a different path. He got a marketing degree. He even spent some time working as a rancher out in Arizona. But eventually, the pull of racing became too strong. In 1971, Stan got behind the wheel and started his racing career in midget cars. These are small, powerful cars that need a steady hand and serious skill to control. Luckily, Stan had both. He quickly stood out on the track. By 1979, he had already made a name for himself. That year, he won the Badger Championship, a big deal in Midwest racing circles. But he wasn't done. That same year, he also won the Belleville Nationals, one of the most respected events in midget racing. And guess what? He came back in 1980 and won it again. These early wins proved that Stan wasn't just another driver. He was someone to watch. He had talent, guts, and a deep love for racing. And soon, he'd take that passion to the biggest stage of them all, the Indianapolis 500. After making a name for himself in midget car racing, Stan Fox set his sights on something bigger, open-wheel racing. In 1987, he got his big break. He joined A.J. Foyt Enterprises, one of the most well-known teams in the sport, and made his debut at the Indianapolis 500. For most rookies, just qualifying for Indy is a huge deal. But Fox went even further. He finished 7th in his very first Indy 500. That might not sound like much, but at a race where just finishing is tough, 7th place was impressive. It was actually the best result of his entire Indy 500 career. From that point on, he kept showing up at Indy year after year. Between 1987 and 1995, Stan raced in the Indy 500 a total of 8 times. That's not something every driver gets to do. He had the skills to stay competitive, and teams trusted him behind the wheel. Over those years, Fox raced with different teams and lined up against some of the best drivers of that era. The competition was tough, but Stan held his own. He wasn't just fast, he was consistent, smart, and knew how to handle pressure. On the track, he built a reputation for being precise and resilient, qualities that every top driver needs. By the mid-90s, Stan Fox had become a respected name in the racing world. Fans knew him. Drivers respected him. He had carved out a solid place in the sport, and everything was leading up to what would become one of the most unforgettable moments in racing history. The year was 1995. It was the 79th running of the Indianapolis 500, one of the most famous races in the world. But this race was different. This was the last Indy 500 before a huge split in American open-wheel racing. Tony George, the president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, had just announced a new racing series, the Indy Racing League, or IRL. This decision caused a lot of tension in the sport. Teams and fans were unsure about the future. No one knew what was going to happen next. Because of this, the 1995 race felt like the end of an era. Still, the excitement was high. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway had recently made improvements to the track surface. It was fast, smooth, and very challenging. Drivers and teams had spent weeks getting their cars ready, making tiny adjustments to handle the track's tricky layout. Fans were pumped. The crowd was huge. Everyone expected a thrilling race. Some were hoping for surprises. Others just wanted a clean, competitive run. The field of drivers was strong, full of talented names, experienced teams, and high hopes. The pressure was on, and the stakes were high. Finally, the green flag waved, engines roared, and the race was on. But no one could have predicted what would happen next. Just seconds after the start, something went terribly wrong. A crash so sudden, so violent, that it shocked the entire racing world. And at the center of it all was Stan Fox. Stan Fox, starting near the front of the field, lost control of his car. It looked like he was trying to avoid contact with other cars when his car suddenly slid sideways. In that split second, Eddie Cheever was right there. Fox's car spun directly into his path. The two cars collided. Then, in front of a stunned audience, Stan Fox's car slammed into the outside wall, head-on. The impact was massive. In an instant, the front of his car shattered. The entire front half of the vehicle was torn away. It was one of the most violent crashes ever seen at the Indy 500, and it happened right on live TV. His car didn't just crash, it broke in half. Pieces flew across the track. The wreckage was scattered. Yellow flags waved immediately as the race came to a stop under caution. The entire field was frozen. No one knew what condition Stan Fox was in. Was he even alive? Medical teams rushed to the scene. Their response was fast. Seconds mattered. When they reached the wreck, Fox was unconscious. It was a terrifying sight. The wreck looked so bad, many feared the worst. In the pit lane and in the stands, there was silence. Drivers, teams, fans, everyone held their breath. No one could believe what they had just seen. The crash had happened so quickly. It was brutal, and it left a lasting impact on everyone watching. Fox wasn't moving. He was unconscious inside what was left of the car. The safety and medical teams rushed to him immediately. They knew every second counted. He was taken from the wreck and moved to the track's medical center. That's when doctors realized just how serious things were. Stan had a severe head injury. He needed more help than the track staff could give, so they made the quick decision to airlift him to Methodist Hospital in Indianapolis. At the hospital, doctors placed him in a medically induced coma. This helped reduce the pressure in his brain and gave his body a better chance to recover. During surgery, they found and removed a blood clot from his brain. The situation was critical, but he was still alive. Surprisingly, his legs weren't injured at all, even though the car had split in two. That shocked everyone. Experts later said the design of the car likely saved his life. The car was built to break apart during a crash so that it absorbs the force instead of the driver. His helmet also played a huge role in protecting his head. One of the doctors explained it like this: "The car is supposed to take the hit, not the person inside." That's exactly what happened. And the fast reaction from the safety crew made a massive difference. Even though the crash was horrific, what happened next showed just how important racing safety has become and how close Fox came to losing his life. Stan Fox spent 5 days in a coma after the crash. The doctors had put him in that state to protect his brain and give his body a chance to heal. No one really knew if he would wake up or what shape he'd be in if he did. Then, on June 2nd, 1995, something amazing happened. Stan woke up. It was a moment of relief for his family, the racing community, and fans everywhere. Against all odds, he had survived one of the worst crashes ever seen at the Indy 500. But things would never be the same. Even though his body healed better than expected, Especially with no injuries to his legs, the brain trauma ended his racing career. The damage was just too serious. People close to him said he was different after the crash, quieter, more distant. The emotional and mental scars ran deep. Still, Stan didn't disappear from the racing world. Instead of racing, he found a new purpose. He started a group called the Friends of the Fox Foundation. Its goal was to raise awareness about head injuries in motorsports. Through this, Stan helped others going through similar struggles. He used his story to educate people, push for better safety, and support those hurt in crashes. He turned his tragedy into something that could help others. Even though he couldn't race anymore, he stayed connected to the sport he loved and made it safer for future drivers. After surviving one of the worst crashes in Indy 500 history, Stan Fox tried to move on with his life. He never returned to racing, but he stayed close to the sport he loved. He spent his time helping others. He wanted to give back, and he did. But 5 years after his crash, tragedy struck again. In December 2000, Stan was in New Zealand. He was there to attend a speedway event, still supporting the racing world even after everything he had been through. While driving on the desert road, something went terribly wrong. On December 18, 2000, Stan Fox was killed in a head-on crash. He was only 48 years old. It was a heartbreaking ending. He had already been through so much. He fought his way back after a life-threatening crash, only to lose his life in another one. This time, not on a racetrack. The racing world was shocked. People who knew him, and even those who only watched him race, felt the loss deeply. He was more than a driver. He was a fighter, a survivor, and someone who tried to make racing safer for others after his own tragedy. His legacy lives on, not just for what he did on the track, but for the strength he showed off of it. Stan Fox's story is powerful, heartbreaking, and unforgettable. What do you think about his journey? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more real stories from the world of motorsport.